Welcome to the Untold Civil War, and today we're going to be talking about primary sources. Now, when I was a student at St. John's University getting my bachelor's in history, I was told that a good historian always refers back to those primary sources. Now, when we're discussing primary sources, we're talking about letters, diaries, newspaper articles, as well as memoirs or autobiographies that were written by people who participated in the event, lived through the event. So that could be anything from a diary from a Civil War soldier to letters written by a Civil War widow, or the official reports, the official records written by the officers who led the soldiers in battle and fought those battles. Today I want to share with you three of my favorite primary sources in regards to the Union side of the Civil War. Now, of course, when we talk about primary sources, we have to remember to always take them with a grain of salt. In order to understand primary sources, we have to know who wrote these primary sources, why did they write these documents, who's the intended audience, what are the goals of the writer. The more we know about that, the more we understand the purpose of the written document, the more we understand the event, the Civil War as a whole. Okay, so just remember that. For example, I remember reading the official report written by the commander, the Union commander that is, at the Battle of Palmito Ranch, which was like the last big land battle of the Civil War. In it, he documents that the reason he lost the battle, can you imagine this? End of the Civil War, the Union is winning left and right, and he fights the last battle, and he actually loses it to the Confederate side. Now, he writes that the reason he had to pull back is because he noticed there was some Imperial Mexican cavalry just across the river there, threatening his flank. The Confederate commander, Rip Ford, the famous Texas Ranger, makes no mention of this Imperial cavalry, and you would think that he would mention something like that because that's a very big deal. He does mention that there was a French gun team, artillery team, that does come and assist him in a little bit, but he doesn't really mention anything else. So what's going on here? Is the Union commander making up this Imperial Mexican cavalry because he wants to give an excuse for why he had to lose this battle or why he had to pull back? Or is Rip Ford not mentioning them because he wants to take more of the glory for himself? I don't know. Go ahead and investigate yourself. Leave in the comments below what you think really happened. But let's go into the three primary sources, the three books I recommend when you want to study the Union side of the Civil War and understand the Union experience of the Civil War. In no particular order, but first up, we do have Grant's personal memoirs. Now, the reason I mention this is because I think they're extremely well written, and of course, I think General Grant is, without a doubt, the greatest military mind this nation has ever produced. He is someone we can all relate to. I mean, he has experienced failure. He has been dragged through the mud. He has fought evil vices, alcoholism. And despite all of that, he goes on to win the Civil War and become a U.S. president. And then, while he's suffering from cancer, he writes this book and pulls his family out of bankruptcy. I mean, this is an incredible story, a real awe-inspiring story. Now, if you read this book, there are so many things in here that are just, golden nuggets. My personally favorite stories in this book, of course, are the one story of him at Shiloh and how he gets shot by a bullet that hits him right above the scabbard of his sword and right below the hilt of the sword. I mean, if you've seen the movie Gettysburg and you see Chamberlain get shot in the scabbard, this is the same sort of thing happening to General Grant, okay? Another story is when he's at Chattanooga, I believe, and he's riding to check on the army, do an inspection, and he sees the Union pickets out, and they yell, "Call out the guard for the commanding general." And him being a modest general, a modest man, tells them to go about their business as you were, But then he looks across the river, and standing there are the Confederate pickets. And they say, "Call out the guard for the commanding general, General Grant." And they come out and give him a salute, which he returns. I think that just goes to show you that this man was respected on both sides, you know, respected as a leader of his own troops, but also respected as a worthy adversary by the Confederates. The Confederates at this time were really tough guys. They were veteran troops. They weren't going to just throw their respect to just anybody. So Grant really earned their respect as well as a worthy adversary. Secondly, I would say we have Hardtack and Coffee, or The Unwritten Story of Army Life, written by John Davis Billings. Now, if you're a reenactor, you already know this book. This is the Bible, reenactor's Bible. It is chock full of details on how the Union Army, the Union soldier lived his life, how things were conducted, and it's much more fun than reading one of these boring manuals. Okay, some of my favorite things in this book are his story about mules and how some people get kicked in the head by these mules because they're so stubborn and rough. But also too, there's a great section on here about Corps badges, which allows me to talk about the sponsor of today's show, the Badge Maker. I'm wearing his shirt here. As you well know, he is the man who's going to get you your Corps badges, your ID discs, your Civil War pipes. He can also do custom products that I know that if you're going out this reenacting season, you're going to need. So please message him. I'm sure he's happy to get you what you need just in time for the reenacting season. Also pick up one of these if you haven't already, because you're going to need it to understand how to just up your impression and understand how soldiers operated during the Civil War. Okay. Finally, I'm going to tell you a quick story and go on a quick detour, but bear with me. Those of you who are my age know that one of the biggest video games to ever come out was Medal of Honor. That really, I think, kick-started the first-person shooters. Okay, and then there was Call of Duty, which soon followed, and both of those franchises really started out just doing World War II stuff. This was before the sci-fi stuff, which I never really understood or really got into. If you're into sci-fi and all of that, that's great. But I love the historical titles much more. In Call of Duty, I do remember that they came out with a Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1, and I watched the behind the scenes for that, which was fantastic as well. And in that, they talked about how they chose the Big Red 1, the 1st Infantry Division, as their main topic for the video game. And the reason was they were looking for a single unit that had traveled through multiple theaters of the war so that the player could really stick with one unit, stick with one squad, right? They had some great voice actors for this game. All of them had previously just done the Band of Brothers series, so they really did bring to life the squad characters in the game. And the Big Red 1, you know, it went through Africa, went through Italy, it went through France, Germany. So the player got to fight different missions on all these different fronts and really experience the World War, right? This is why I recommend this book. This book, I'm sorry for the lack of cover here, but this is the 79th New York Volunteers, 1861-1865, written by William Todd. He was a member of the 79th New York Highlanders, War of the Rebellion, okay? This was a unit that came out of New York City, and it basically prided itself by linking itself as a sister regiment to the 79th Cameron Highlanders of the British Army. They were not all Scottish. There was a bunch of different people who served in the 79th New York Highland Guard, but they were all real jealous of the Highland nom de guerre, as they would say, and they were very proud of it. And so you would have these Irishmen, these Germans, these Brits who would join this unit simply to don the plaid and fight under this great nom de guerre of the Cameron Highlanders, the Highland Guard. I'm hoping to do an episode on them specifically because they have a great history. So I don't want to get too much into it. Of course, in the story, some of my favorites is the fact that there was a moment, and he even says in this book that this is probably the first and only time in history where infantry charged cavalry with bayonets and actually caused them to flee and retreat. So that's something to be said for these brave Highlanders. So I definitely recommend this book because the Highlanders Like the Big Red One in World War II, they were in South Carolina, they were in Virginia, they were in Tennessee, they were at Vicksburg, they were all over. So if you just want one book to buy so that you can understand the different fronts, the different theaters of war during the Civil War, I would recommend buying this book, because the 79th probably spent time in almost every theater of the war, and you could argue by doing so maybe single-handedly played a large role in the successful Union victory at the end of the war. So that being said, those are my top 3 primary sources or books for the Union in regards to the Union side on the Civil War. I'm pretty sure you can pick them up on Amazon. Please leave in the comments below which you think are your favorites, if you agree, you disagree, or maybe there's one I left out. So keep me posted. Give this video a like if so inclined. Click subscribe, share with your friends. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And if you haven't already, go check out the podcast. Please check us out on Facebook, on Instagram. Links will be in the description below. Thank you very much. And again, I want to thank all my Patreon supporters. This video would not be possible without your help. So thank you very much and have a good day.